Ich liebe dich so, wie du mich am Abend und am Morgen, noch war kein Tag, wo du dich nicht teilten unsere Sorgen. Doch waren sie für dich und mich geteilt, leicht zu ertragen. Du tröstetest im Kummer mich, ich weint zu deinen Klagen, zu deinen Klagen. Drum Gottes Segen über dir, du meines Herzens Freude. Gott schütze dich, erhalt dich mir, schütz und erhalt uns beide. Gott schütze dich, erhalte dich mir, schütz und erhalt uns beide. Erhalt uns beide. Erhalt uns
Wasn't that gorgeous?
Mm.
Good evening, everyone, or day, or wherever you're at in the world. My name is Abe Hunter, and I'm the founder of the Lead Society. And I'm so happy to be joined with my friends, Raehann-Bryce Davis. Hi, Raehann.
Hello. Great to be here with you.
And my new friend, Clemens Anton Klug. Hi.
Good evening
Gott.
from Austria.
Grüß Gott.
Grüß Gott.
I remember
Hello.
that from my time in Austria. And, of course, the one and only Dean Southern. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Abe. Thanks for having me here today.
You're welcome. I'd like to, just to get the ball rolling, if each of you could just talk about how you got to be in the proximity of the great Ms. Ludwig. And Raehann, we'll start with you.
So it was very near to the beginning of my solo career. I had just finished some young artist programs in the States, and I decided to do the big gamble and go to Europe and really try to make it in the big times. So the very first competition that I did was in Vienna, and it was the Hilde Tzadek competition. This is 2015. And so, you know, you go through the different rounds, and it was a very prestigious jury. Brigitte Fassbender was the chair of the jury, who was already like a huge role model of mine. And so it was very stressful. But then at the finale, which was at the Musikverein, on the very front row sat the great Hilde Tzadek, and right beside her was Christa Ludwig. And so, you know, I went through, I tried to keep it together, and I sang my three pieces that the jury had chosen. The first one was Tobias Picker from Emmeline, was Verlassen by Schönberg, which was terrifying for me to sing in Vienna. And then the third one was O Malheur Immortel from Sappho. And so when I finished, I tried not to think about the fact that she was right there because, you know, as a mezzo, I had grown up living with, I brought out my autobiography, her autobiography, because this was like my Bible when I was growing up. I would go through and see like all the roles that she had sung. I was like, okay, so I can do this. And then where did she sing? Okay, so I'm going to try to do those things. You know, she had just been my biggest icon. She was known for Lieder and also for opera, and that is exactly the world that I wanted to balance in. And so it was just the hugest honor of my life to sing and for her to be sitting right there. So when it finally finished, I sang my last chords. Sappho has just plummeted into the sea. I looked and there was Christa like, brava, brava. And I was just like, oh. And there are pictures, you can see the picture online of me just like, oh, and just like bowing to her and to Hilda. And it was just unreal for that to happen. One of the prizes that I received for winning the competition was a master class with Christa in Karlsruhe. And so then I got to spend proper time with her. I don't want to take over the whole, I won't share my whole conversation. Should I just tell the whole story?
Let's tell the story.
Just tell the story. All right. So as soon as I arrived for the master class, Maria Venuti, who was a dear friend now and who worked very closely with the Hilda Tzaddik competition, she, as soon as I walked in the room, she's, Christa wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay. What do I need to do? Like now? Do I need to talk to her now? Because the masterclass was already running with the other singers. And she was like, no, as soon as it's over, go to the front. Christa wants to talk to you. So I was like, okay. And I was just trying to prepare myself because I was about to sing for this masterclass and work with the great Christa. And everybody kind of warns you that she's very honest and you don't know what's going to come out. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying myself, so finally it was time to go up to sing. And as I was walking by Christa, she was like, I need to talk to you. So I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done that Christa like so demandingly like has to talk to me? And she's like, make sure you stay right here because after the class, I have to talk to you. I was like, all right. Okay, so I got up and I sang O mio Fernando. And so I sang it through the first time and she was like, that was great. That was great. I have nothing to say. And then of course I do it again. She has a million things to say, which was wonderful to have that great honor to work with her. And she really emphasized the beauty of tone and in the low chest voice notes we mezzos liked. I'm like, blah! And she's like, no, why would you be so vulgar? Sing beautifully. And I'm like, okay, I will sing beautifully. And then right at the very end, I sang my cadenza and she was like, no, throw in the high notes, throw in the high B. I was like, okay. So I did it. And then she was like, oh, but you can really do it. And so she was that I could very easily just like, pop in a high B casually. And so she was like, wow, that's lucky for you. So, after the class, I went to the front as dutifully as I was told. And she was like, okay, come with me. So she was packing up her things and we headed in the car and we started driving. I had no idea where we were going. I had no idea where we were going, what I had gotten myself into, but Christa says, let's go. And let's go. So I got in, I was sitting in the back seat and she was telling me about all these wonderfully great singers she had worked with and all of these, stories and adventures that she had had. And then she was like, there's one thing that you need to work on. And so I was like, oh, okay, what is it? She's like, you have to fix this. You have to. And I was like, okay, what is it? Please tell me, my dear, great leader. And she was like, you must get a breast reduction. And so I was like, oh. She's like, you must. I will tell you all, my friend, blah, blah, blah had a breast reduction. And then she was so much happier. My other friend, blah, blah, blah. You must, and you will sing so much more happily, and you will be able to fit in the costumes. And so we spent the whole ride talking about how I must immediately get a breast reduction. And it was magical, just surreal to just be in the car with her. Eventually, we got to her hotel where she was staying. I still had no idea what was going on. So we got to the hotel, we started walking, we went up to her room, we walked in, we went to the closet, and she's like, okay, listen. The one thing that you needed to have fixed in Vienna was you must hide your sins. I always hid my sins and you must hide your sins. Essentially, my dress was too tight. And so I must wear much more diva flowing gowns. And she's like, I will fix it for you. She goes in the closet and pulls out something that I had seen my whole singing career in her autobiography. She brought out the dress that she wore for her finale, her farewell concert in Vienna at the Musikverein. There was so much history in that dress, and she brought it out and she was like, here. Oh. It was just like waterworks. And we took a selfie. I was like, can I please just take a selfie? She's like, oh, fine. So we did it. We took a selfie, and that for the rest of my life will be maybe the most wonderful selfie I've ever taken, to be beside the great Christa Ludwig and to have this dress. I wore it there for her at the gala in Karlsruhe. And then I wore it for my first Verdi Requiem at Carnegie Hall, which had been a stage where she had sung so many times and was so historied. And I was so nervous, but it was like I was wrapped in her. And so it felt so much more secure and loving to make music with her so near and dear to my heart. So I didn't get to have so much contact with her, but whenever I would shoot her an email, she would always respond and give me all of her wisdom. I released a music video last year, and I sent it to her, and she's like, the singing is beautiful, beautiful singing. Why have you dyed your hair blonde? And so she was always utterly truthful, but was always so immensely supportive of me. And she was kind of my first stamp of approval. And for that to come from one of the most great icons of music has just been so meaningful to me. So that is
treasured experience. Oh my God. I would just sleep in the dress. Clemens, what do you have any dresses?
No, I don't have any dresses from her. No, I have a lot of other stuff from her, but no dresses. When we heard this Ich liebe dich, I was 17 when I heard it for the first time, and it was her farewell song recital in my hometown, Graz. And afterwards, I wanted to go backstage. By that time, I was still collecting autographs. And they said, no, Frau Kammersängerin is not receiving anyone tonight. And I was mad. And I said to my mother, who was with me, the last piece she sang was Guten Abend, Gute Nacht. And we were all weeping, of course, because everybody knew it was her last song recital. One of many, because she was on several farewell tours, as we all know. But I know the background of these. That's not the important thing. Anyway, I said to my mother, I don't want to see her again, ever. And my mother said, you're not going to see her anyway, because it was her farewell evening. So there's no chance. Anyway, to the day, 25 years later, she signed me that program. To the day, 25 years later. And how did I get to know Christa? I created a little concert series on All Saints and All Souls Day on the central cemetery of my hometown. They have a beautiful church there. And it was called Musik gegen die Schwerkraft, Music Against Gravity. And one idea was I transcribed songs, like art songs, for cello and piano. And those songs were performed by a cellist. And I wanted a singer, a former singer, to speak the poetry of these songs. So we had like music and poetry together. And I originally thought of Brigitte Fassbender because I knew she was doing that kind of programs already. And I called her, and we had already worked professionally. I mean, I'm an artist manager for classical singers. And she said, no, you know, I'm directing. I can do it. I'm not free, but maybe you'll find someone else. And I said, well, do you have any idea who might want to do that? She said, call Christa. And I said, well, I can't just call Christa. I mean, that's nothing you do. You just don't call Christa. Plus, I was told that she was, you know, sort of very demanding and difficult, and she would ask for tons of euros and a private plane and whatever. And so I wrote her a letter. And 2 or 3 days later, I got a call. Here's the Christa Ludwig. I want to do that. That really sounds interesting. I want to do that. I'm coming to Graz. Yes, let's do that. And I said, you know, but that's on a cemetery. She said, yeah, that's no problem. We'll all end up there at some point. So she came. No, I have to say that this process, the preparation of this program was so wonderful because we really got to know each other very, very well. We hadn't met each other, like personally, only via the phone. And the idea was from May to May. We started with Im wunderschönen Monat Mai. And the last song was, of course, on All Souls Day, Aller Seelen by Richard Strauss, which ends with Einst im Mai. And she said to me, and that was really a great compliment, she said, you know what, that's such a fabulous program. I wish we had known each other 25 years ago when I was still singing. I could have asked for your advice.
Ah.
So she came to Graz, and we had, and I mean, no one actually thought that she would show up. And the audience came just to witness that she wasn't there, but she came and she was gorgeous. And she really liked the idea of doing this program. And so we repeated it. We did it for the opening of the Salzburg Festival at the Mozarteum, a similar program which I had written for her and those two musicians, Friedrich Kleinhappel and Andreas Woike. And we also did it in a matinee at the Vienna State Opera. And I really can, I can honestly say we have become friends through this, you know, professional collaboration. She would come to Graz often. She gave master classes. I got her in touch with the American Institute of Musical Studies, and she loved coming here. And whenever she could, she would come to Graz, and we spent a lot of time with each other. And she was everything but difficult. I mean, we did the weirdest things. She said, well, it's a hot day, let's go for an ice cream. So we went to an ice cream parlor, and you know, the people were falling in their ice. The great Christa Ludwig, she didn't care. She really didn't care about that. And if somebody came up to her, oh, can I have a photograph, or could you? She signed napkins, she signed everything. And she was the most easygoing person ever. the most easygoing person I've ever met. And I visit her several times in her house in Klosterneuburg. We met in Vienna, and we were, like the last year, we were mostly talking on the phone regularly, like probably once a week or every second week, until 2 weeks ago, actually. And yeah, and the last week I called her, and her wonderful housekeeper who had taken care of her life for almost 50 years said, well, Christa can't answer the phone anymore. It's coming to an end. So I wasn't surprised, to be honest. But I missed her more than I can express. And I will be eternally grateful to everything I've experienced through her and with her. And she's had a huge influence on my life.
Mm-hmm. We're fortunate that she's left such a legacy.
Yes, definitely.
And Dean, maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience with her and contributing to that legacy.
Sure. I love hearing Raehann and Clemens sharing your experiences with her. It's really this is I'm so glad that we can be together to talk about this person that we all revere. I knew about Christa Ludwig for a long time just as a name. I'm a pianist first, and so in my piano days I knew about lots of singers, but I didn't really know singing that well until I went back to school in my later 20s to study as a singer. And when I was working on Winterreise, I found myself listening to every baritone I could find. As a baritone, that's just what we did. And I found myself mimicking every baritone I listened to. And my teacher would say, no, not like that, let's do it like this. And then I found the recording of Christa Ludwig singing Winterreise. And that became how I learned Winterreise. From her, I was able to take depth of meaning that I had not really gained from the other recordings, because I was dealing more with sound itself in the other recordings I was listening to. I knew that I wasn't going to turn into a mezzo listening to her sing it, but what I heard was unerring legato and crystal clear diction and expressivity through conventional means. It was never through tricks. It was always through the most genuine way of expressing oneself. And that was how I came to really understand what her art was all about. And then of course it expanded from there, and then the incredible recorded legacy in opera too. And she became the idealization of what great singing is to me. And then as I moved into becoming a teacher of singers, she was, even before I met her, she was probably the singer I would recommend the most. And from 2004 to 2014, I taught at Ames in Graz, which is where Clemens and I first met. And Clemens, I guess it might have been maybe 2011 or so, she first came to Graz to give the master class. And I was so excited. I was so excited to have this moment. I used to give lectures on singers at Ames and play recordings. And I remember doing a lecture on her career to teach the students that were there about her recorded legacy. And it was a big moment for me. And I'm not one that gets really excited about meeting famous singers, but this is somebody I was truly, truly excited about. And I remember it was a very cold day in the middle of July, which was not common in Graz in the summers. And we were in the Minnerittensaal, Clemens, and it was freezing. And the only thing I had was this red fleece jacket. I never thought that I would have a chance to meet her, talk to her, get a photo taken. So my first photo with her, I'm wearing this red fleece jacket that I bought at Disney World. There's Mickey Mouse right here. So my first pictures with this Mickey fleece. And, but having the moment I remember kneeling down, she was sitting in the aisle, to tell her that how much she meant to me in my development as a singer, and now as a teacher of singers, how important it was for my students to listen to her because of all that she embodied in her singing. And I'll never forget, she took her hand and put it on top of mine, and she said, "I like to hear this." So that was great. And I remember that class, I was there, at least 10 years earlier than I am now in my teaching career. And I totally went down my voice teacher checklist, the things that you think about when the students would sing. I was like, well, they need to do this and this and this and this, thinking I knew things. The only thing in that first class she talked about was legato. And she made everybody better. It was so unwavering in the way that she did not let up on that. In subsequent classes, she would expand it, but that was so amazing to me to hear, not getting bogged down in maybe perhaps technical details, but really just staying on that, how much she improved everyone. And then, then in subsequent years, she came back, and then Clemens was able to arrange for me to interview her for Classical Singer magazine. And I think that was in 2013, Clemens, that we sat, was the Hotel Wiesler. I think that's where we were. And Clemens was sitting there and, was hosting her. And I was anticipating a 2-hour-long interview, and then Clemens said, "You have 30 minutes." I thought, oh no, I have all this I want to ask. But she's been doing interviews for her whole life, and she was bam, bam, bam with answers. And it was just electric. And I am so grateful to have had that time just to talk to her. I know that I'm very fortunate to have had that. And Clemens, thank you for arranging that. And she was so gracious and so clear and so inspiring. And right, she would tell it like it is. And as we talk more, we'll probably bring up some stories from some of the classes perhaps. But it's just, I am so grateful to have been able to be in the presence of greatness like that.
Well, and we're fortunate enough to have a few of these clips from that interview. And speaking of legato, maybe we could start there. Here we go.
In your master classes and on your recordings, one of the dominant themes is legato.
Oh, yeah.
Why is this so hard for
I don't know.
to understand?
I don't know.
Is there a way of describing it in words?
They have only to listen to other concerts, to violin concerts, to cello concerts. They don't go. They are singers. They are no musicians. Otherwise, they would listen to how it is. Yeah, and I don't know. It is also perhaps for the breath something. Perhaps also.
Do you think that legato is different in German repertoire than Italian repertoire?
No.
Legato is legato.
Legato is legato. No. The only difference is that we don't like the Italian always, yeah.
And one thing that last night,
they don't speak
the language.
They don't speak the end consonant, yeah.
And that's something. Is that something that you see consistently with? Is it an American thing, or is it a cultural thing today? Are we too intimate with the language?
Nobody teaches it. Okay. That's all. No, but I wonder how they speak German. No? Oh, das ist fantastic. No, it's fantastic. No, okay. I know when I was singing French songs, my husband was French, and then he said, "No, Christa, you say always." I say it's one word, merci. I say merci. No, it is mercy. He said, I say mercy. No, you don't say mercy. It was impossible. It is impossible. Yeah. No, it is. Callas made this wonderful. The consonant and the vowels were so together. And this has to be together. This is legato. Not that they say, was ist das? Nein, was ist das? It has to flow further. No? So, I don't know. They don't teach it anymore.
And then last night with the young woman singing the composer aria, strahlenden Ton, you were getting her to not do so much strahlenden Ton,
of course. Of course.
Would you almost say to leave out the ends in your mind?
Of course, when it goes, Scholti said in the middle range you speak very well, and in the higher range you smear.
Scholti told you that?
Scholti.
That's wonderful.
We have to. Also we have to smear. That the line is beautiful. Strahlenden und dann strahlenden Ton. It's kikeriki, yeah? Or kokoriko.
What a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's so, I've gone back to this over the years to listen to this recording, and this is the first I've ever shared it. And it's, I think hearing her speak is just, you get a little, you get who she is in that. And yeah, and she's so gracious in sharing.
And an enormous amount of real usable wisdom in a 60-second soundbite. Practical advice. Right.
I mean, sometimes it's. I remember in some master classes. I'm sure Clemens has some stories, and Raehann too. It's. I remember. Hearing some young mezzos in classes, being afraid to sing in the low. A little different than Raeann's story, and she said, "Why don't you sing those notes?" And the student said, I'm afraid I don't want to push. And she said, sometimes you have to push, otherwise you don't make the money. There you go. Very clear, very, it's just, the clarity is what I think is so wonderful.
Raehann, what was it like working with her one-on-one in a master class?
I mean, it was magical, and it's lovely to have legato as the start, because that is almost exclusively what we worked on throughout the entire piece. Keeping the breath rolling, having the mezza di voce through every phrase, and even, it's funny to hear the other way. Sometimes you have to push, and I think she actually did say that to a different mezzo. So it's beautiful that, depending who she was speaking to, she had different advice. But I definitely I think I was pushing too much. So she's like, you need to calm down. But it was just inspirational. We sing all of the same repertoire. And so to hear from someone who has done this, like almost best ever, was incredibly inspirational. So I know that I got the merciful Christa version of a master class, but I witnessed also many different energies that she had with different singers. But it was just incredible, and I still have my music and all my markings of the different things that she said, and I still hear her voice. It's great to hear your interview in English. She refused to speak to me in English. Anything I didn't understand in German, the pianist would be whispering to me, and I'm like, what did she say? And she totally speaks English beautifully, but she was like, no, you're gonna understand German as of now. So it was absolutely beautiful experience, and she's just a legend that I will, for the rest of my life, invest in emulating.
Well, I want to play another clip, another brief one. This is pertaining to leader and learning. Let's listen.
How is singing lieder for you different than the expectations of singing
this
opera?
is another. What is a Schubfach?
Another drawer.
Another drawer.
It's a different drawer.
Of course, you have to have another voice, and this is a total different. In opera, you hide yourself with a perücke and with the makeup and with the costumes, and that's not me. That's Carmen or Ortrud or whatever. No? And with a lied, you are yourself. You have to give your soul, your heart, and your imagination and your intelligence and everything. You have to give to the audience like this. You have nothing in between, only a piano and a singer. And this is something else. And this is, of course, much more, for me it was much more important, because I was alone, to get the audience. Because you come out and then you say, okay, now comes the first tone, and the audience has to go with you. Right. And to get it, that it responds, That's fantastic.
How did you learn that? Was that with your work with
With my
Eric
mother.
Verba, with your mother?
With my mother. I learned everything with my mother because my mother taught me not only how to sing and to breathe and no, she taught me the sense of life, the everything else. Yeah.
That's very wonderful.
What is
That's
necessary
wonderful.
also a little bit.
I love that little clip.
I need to say something here. I think every second sentence that Christa said was, my mother has always said. Meine Mutter hat immer gesagt. And I mean, I've never met her mother, but she must have been a very intelligent woman. Because some of the things, and I may say that with all due respect, some of the things that Christa said weren't that intelligent. But artistically, the influence from her mother is enormous. And I once said to her, you know, you always say, meine Mutter hat immer gesagt. And one day I will say to other people, Christa hat immer gesagt. Christa has always said. And I already find myself saying that about stories that she had told, about her view on certain things. I have already, just last week, I've talked to people and I said to them, Christa has always said, and I think that's the legacy she would like to, that's the legacy she deserves, because she has influenced a lot of people positively. And I think that's what she would like to be remembered as a positive influence for so many. And I need to say, she hated master classes. She didn't like doing it. She hated it. Some of them she only did for the money. I know that. But if she met someone like you, for instance, or others, she would do anything for these people. I remember she taught one of my sopranos at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. And she called me out of the masterclass and said, you know, that I've just realized she's one of your people. This is one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. And I said, Christa, can I use this line? Of course you can. So I used it on the headline of her resume. And it was used all over the world later on. And then, I mean, she was very, very young, 25. And I said, do you need any help with her? I said, well, if you can write to a few conductors. And I still have those emails. She wrote to James Levine, Christian Thielemann, Riccardo Muti, Subin Mehta, sort of telling them about this young soprano. And she was really extremely supportive. If she liked someone, if she thought that someone was worth her support, she would do anything for this person, really. And that's a great legacy.
Even give them a dress.
Yes.
Speaking of conductors, we have another clip about her three conductors. Let's listen.
So Böhm picked me up in the provincial town of Hanover. Darmstadt. Oh, I was in Darmstadt, yes. And we met each other in Frankfurt, and the agency said, you know, they are looking for a new young Elisabeth Hönggen. Elisabeth Hönggen was the great mezzo-soprano in the Staatsoper Wien, but now she was over the hill, and so they were looking for a young one. After me, they looked for a young, this was Agnes Balzer. Oh. After Agnes Balzer, it is Garancha. You know, it is always 10 years, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Or 12 years, but 10 years, let's say. And so I said, no, I don't want to go to Vienna. I'm too young. I was 26 this time. And I said, oh, no. And I heard this is such a nest of intrigue and so, no. And then he said only to me, he wrote a letter, Dr. Böhm is in the Frankfurter Hof Hotel, and then you come on this day at 2:30 you are there. So I was there, and he said, my child, yeah, you want to come to Vienna? No, I said, no, I don't want to come to Vienna. Yeah, this doesn't matter. How old are you? And I told when I was born, and he said, oh, this is the same day like my son, Karl-Heinz. Karl-Heinz Böhm. He was an actor. No? He acted also in Hollywood, but he had only to play the bad Germans. The bad Germans. So, and then when he died, Böhm, the old Böhm, he took care about Ethiopia. No?
Yeah.
It is Ethiopian.
Ethiopia.
Yeah, Ethiopia.
People for people.
Yeah, people.
Oh, wonderful.
People for people. That was the thing. And now it is his wife who, because he is a little bit dement. No. And so I sang the big parts, yeah, so Azucena, Ulrika, and Amneris, and he said to me, you know, in Vienna you will sing with me Cherubino. Until this time I sang only the old mother of Figaro. So it came. This was Böhm. He picked me up, and he taught me that the value of the notes and the points, little point and the pausen, that this is correct. This was Böhm. Later on came Karajan, and he taught me the beauty of the phrase. To listen to the orchestra, and we had the wonderful Philharmonic, to listen to the violins, and he said, for example, in Das Lied von der Erde, the mezzo-soprano has to take over a phrase from the cello without orchestra afterwards, to start without orchestra. And he said to me, you have to make the same sound as the cello did. So this kind of music he gave me. And then came Bernstein, and he gave me this inner side of music, not only the what die Oberfläche?
The structure, or wie sagt man, the facade.
Right.
Not only this, this.
Gave you the inside.
The inside, yeah. And I had also this age where I understood a little bit. I was 43 years or something like this, and so I understood a little bit, yeah. No, I was younger, 41 or 40, it doesn't matter. Yeah, because I thought after 40 years, I started to understand music. Until this time I sang the music, and to understand music is a different thing, yeah.
Yes.
And I had my first Schubert recital after 40 years. I couldn't. No.
That was your first Schubert recital?
Yeah, after I was 40 years old, yes. Right. Because only Schubert was too difficult for me, yeah. Because it is so easy music.
I love what she says at the end, that it's such easy music, but that's what makes it so difficult. And I had no idea she had waited so long before singing Schubert recital.
Yeah, I was surprised when she said that too. You know, we so often, you know, as in teaching young singers, many times that's where we start, because the music is not so difficult. As she said, you know, it's the ranges are for the most part manageable, and but boy, to really do it to the level that it can be done requires so much maturity. So it's hearing that from somebody like her was made me think about that in a very different way as a teacher. Yeah, and I remember from her classes, you know, and I think, you know, as she started, I don't know how much she'd been doing before those first years, but then I think in the subsequent years, she was getting more teaching language, it seemed. And I remember she would come and say, legato, legato, legato. She said, I'm always legato, legato, legato. But then she said, but with enthusiasm. And that was the great thing, you know, that she did not want it to be, you know, colorless, but it was always with the enthusiasm part. And that became an addition. And so those are things that my students will hear me say all the time. And I will always credit her with this. You know, this was a profoundly reflective week. And, you know, I woke up and saw on Facebook that Cheryl Studer posted that she had passed away, that Frau Ludwig had passed away. And so I did not want to believe just what I read on Facebook, even though I figured that Cheryl Studer probably knew. So I sent a message to Clemens and I just said, "Is it true?" And he confirmed it. And so it's been an amazing week to reflect on these things. And this is the singer that I talk about more than any other with my students. And they know that when I'm not on Facebook with my students, but when I created my account way back in the thoughts, when we got to that was in the day when you filled out everything dutifully. And so I was putting religion, and I grew up, and I still am Lutheran. So I put the L for Lutheran, but I finished it legato. And that's still what's on there. And so my students know that that's my religion on Facebook is legato, and that Christa Ludwig was my high priestess. She's my high priestess of legato. So we're very fortunate to have had her in our lives and that we still have her recordings.
Clemens, what was it like? I just love that you found a way to keep her active in her non-singing years. Can you talk more about that experience? And
yeah, originally she didn't think that anyone wanted to hear her speak poetry, but with the help of her late husband, Paul-Émile Debert, she really worked hard on that. It wasn't like making easy money, having another career. No, that wasn't the idea. She really enjoyed it, and she enjoyed it listening to the music and sitting on the stage. That was essential for her. She really enjoyed being on stage. And there was one thing for the concert in Salzburg. There wasn't an incredibly huge amount of money involved. Although it was Salzburg, but it was for this opening celebration. And she said to me, "You know what? I don't want any money for that. I want to make sure the others get paid. So that's fine with me. As long as they pay their hotel, I don't want any money." And I thought it was very, very unusual for somebody of her caliber to sort of not get paid to make sure that others get the money. And for me, the essential part was, of course, being taken seriously by such a great artist, and that she would value my opinion. And that many times she would call me and say, "Well, I need your advice on something." And she would call me Klug. And say, "Klug, ich habe eine Frage." She accepted some award by the Richard Strauss Society, or she would speak somewhere. So, "Oh, can't you just write me a speech? I have no idea what I should talk about." And so I did, and I thought it was a great honor for me, and we put together some nice stuff. But it was especially nice socializing with her. We had a great deal of fun. When no one else was around, she would tell me stories that are not in the books, believe me. And I remember one evening after rehearsal in Salzburg, we went to the Herzl, which is not the Golden Hirsch, but a sort of a less expensive restaurant in Salzburg behind the Getreidegasse. And the tables are very, very close to each other. And of course, when she entered, everybody was looking, "Oh, there's the great Christa Ludwig." And the lady on the table next to ours wanted to pay when we were arriving. But at the end, she was still there when we left, because what Christa had to tell was so interesting that people didn't even want to go to the bathroom because they were afraid that they would miss something, because there were pictures of singers that either had sung at the Salzburg Festival or had been to this restaurant. And she would go through all these pictures and tell stories. There was a very well-known, great star, tenor. And she said, you know, he had a great voice, but it wasn't erotic at all. Or other stuff that people had never heard or never thought about. And she would talk about her colleagues openly, with respect, but sometimes also with, she would not understand why somebody could be difficult just for the reason of being difficult. When it came to artistic questions, she was very sure what she wanted and she had her opinion. But besides that, off stage, she didn't understand why anyone could be difficult. She would stop whatever she was doing if somebody asked her for an autograph. She would talk about a colleague in Salzburg who refused to sign autographs. And they were walking to a performance and somebody, of course, like in Austria, everybody asked for autographs all the time. And so this other colleague, I'm not mentioning the name because she's still alive, said, no, tonight I have to sing later. I can't write autographs. That's not possible. No, you can't ask us before a performance. Christa signed the autograph and said, you know, in the meantime, while you're talking and speaking to this person, you could have written a book. So why are you being so difficult? And I mean, you have made this experience yourself. She was the most easygoing person ever. And there wasn't a time or a situation where she refused to have a picture taken with someone. She enjoyed it. Sometimes it was stressful, of course. But she was always there if somebody approached her.
Mm. Well, speaking of colleagues or other singers, I would like to share one more clip. Let's listen.
In addition to Zinka Milanov, were there other singers that you sang with that influenced you?
Oh yeah, Callas, of course. Because I mean, Milanov I admired for the beauty of the voice and what she was doing with the voice. And Callas I admired not for the voice, because the voice was not beautiful, but the expression was fantastic. And so I thought this is, Callas was more important for me than Milanov, because I think only to make beautiful tones is boring. And and I think the expression is also, the words is very, very for the leader singing. I chose mostly my songs with the words. I know today the words, but not the music in my brain.
Thoughts on that, Raehann?
It's after we've had all this conversation about beautiful legato, it's lovely to hear this. And I think at the time, like, I go back and I listen to these old recordings and I hear all the flaws in my voice, but she kept saying, but you have heart. And I think that I kept asking her, well, like, what's to fix? She's like, you'll figure it out. You have heart. And so it's interesting that was her priority, and having the expression came first. So it's beautiful to hear that confirmed.
Raehann, when you were reading her biography and returned to it, what pages do you have things that are earmarked? What do you keep going back to?
I think it's the list of the roles. Sometimes if people are like, can you sing this role? I'm like, wait, hold on. Just to see the trajectory of a voice, and having fallen in love with her sound and lived in her sound for so long. It's just my reference point. her voice is my reference point. So it's an incredible artist that
Indeed.
has always meant the absolute world to me.
Clemens, anything in closing?
Yes, because it shows a lot about the personality of Christa. Talking about colleagues, she was, when Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau got the Grand Ordre of the French Légion d'honneur, some great things, Christa was chosen by Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau to speak, the Eloge. And she wanted to be friendly because she wanted to say how famous he was. And by that time, she was still living in Paris. And that's what she said. Today we are honoring Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, and my husband and I lived in Paris, and we moved away because he was on the radio all the time. And that was her sense of humor that I absolutely adored. She could break down a house with her comments, and this is what I really, really miss a lot, having a good laughter with her. And we had good laughters until 2 weeks before she died. And I'm very grateful for that.
Dean, in closing, any thoughts?
Oh, it's just, there are so many things. I think her memoir is something everybody should read, especially I think any student of singing. I think the way that she openly shared an artist's life with all of us, the discipline that she had in her career can't be underestimated. She talked, I think, in the memoir about how she had been to all these cities all around the world, and they said, "Oh, you must love Tokyo." She said, "I've only seen the hotel," because she was so disciplined, and she talks about that a lot. And I remember Clemens, I think it was the last year I was there, we were at dinner and with her, and she was enjoying the wine, and she said that she couldn't have it that much during her career, but now she enjoys it. And I said, "Do you miss that, the singing?" And she said, no. She was very matter of fact. She did not miss it. She gave everything to it, and she left it there. But the way that she has shared so much with us, we're all the better for it.
And Raehann, any plans to wear that dress anytime soon?
I don't know. It's got to be something very special now.
What an amazing experience for all of you to have been able to have an experience with her. The dress story just melts my heart. I mean, that just tells me so much about her. I have one last little clip that, to play from Christa.
My mother told me always, if you sing something from rain, the sound has to be rainy, and it is the sun, it is sunshine in the voice. You have to color the voice. It is a painting what you are doing, painting with different colors, that it is not always the same color. Of course. And we have but because my father, he gave also lessons with speaking, yeah? And I grow up with Der kleine Hai. This is a book for how to say an O and an O and like this, yeah.
Fantastic.
And when the sun is shining, die Sonne, then the O is open, die Sonne scheint. Wenn die Sonne nicht scheint, no sun, then is die Sonne. Then is das O a little bit darker. And things like this, nobody learns it anymore.
Except from her. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us and taking time to share.
See, I need to tell you, I forgot about that. But in this very moment, when you talked about the dress, I think it was not the last time I visited her. That's the Rosenkavalier by Augarten. It's a very popular porcelain statue. And she had several of them. And when I visited her, she said, well, I have so many of them because all the people gave me. Do you want one? So that's hers. That's the Rosenkavalier. Thank you for telling the story with it. I had no idea. I had forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Well, thank you, Clemens, for joining us from beautiful Austria. Dean from sunny Cleveland. You've got to get going, and Raehann from sunny Texas, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for taking time to share these memories, and to many more.
Thank you, Abe.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.